Let's see, what time is it? Yeah, I think we can get started. My name's Elizabeth Janice Pearl, and I'm the Alumni Director here at UCEAP. And Vivian, do you want to do a quick introduction?
Yeah, I'm Vivian Nitre. I'm the Associate Vice Provost and Executive Director of UCEAP, and I was formerly a Study Center Director in the Netherlands program in the early 2000s a couple of times.
Bryn?
Hi, everyone. My name is Bren Lemon. I am an alumna of our programs in Edinburgh in 2015, and then I went on to work in our study center there, and now I'm the scholarships and alumni engagement coordinator in our office in Santa Barbara, and I'll be running the technical side of things today.
Well, welcome, everyone. We'll get to introducing our speaker shortly, but I just wanted to do some quick housekeeping. As you see on the screen, please keep yourself muted during the presentation. We do ask, if you can, to temporarily change your name to include where you studied abroad in the country and year. You can do that by just clicking on the participant window, right-click, and then use select rename. We will have time for Q&A at the end, but you're welcome to type into chat at any time any questions you have for John, and we will get to those. And then we do encourage you to use your video if you're able to. It just makes it a little more interactive for John to see your faces, and it makes it a little bit more of a personal experience for today's talk. And we hope you enjoy the presentation. So today we are celebrating our 2021 Linda Dutton-Haver Distinguished Alumni Award awardee, John Williams. The Dutton-Haver Alumni Award was established in 2014 and named in honor of Linda Dutton-Haver, one of our participants in the Bordeaux program in 1975. The award is the highest achievement bestowed upon an outstanding alum or alumnus and salutes the achievements in particular discipline or organization. The awardee will have made a positive impact on our global community and be an inspiration to current students and alumni. Since 2004, Linda Dutton-Haver has supported over 40 UC students annually with scholarship awards of $5,000 each for participation in a year-long program. She is one of our most distinguished alums and our biggest benefactor. So we named this award in her honor. Unfortunately, Linda couldn't be with us here today, but she did send in a video with a few words about why she started the scholarship program. Here she is.
People often ask me about why I created my Dutton-Haver Scholarship Program. To answer that, I need to first give you a little background. Peel back the calendar to 1974, when I was a sophomore at UC Santa Barbara. That fall, I rallied all of my courage to apply for a year abroad in Bordeaux, France, a logical choice for a French major. I felt emotions ranging from happiness and surprise to anxiety and fear when I learned that I had been accepted. But I got on that plane that rainy September morning and I never looked back. Now, I'll confess to you that when I left for France, I didn't have much self-confidence, was rather shy, and frankly scared to death of being on my own in a foreign country. Remember, this was an era before cell phones, Skype, and email. I had to figure it all out. Everything from how to get from where I lived to the university each day, to how to communicate with a doctor when I got a bad case of the flu, from buying groceries to making a withdrawal from the bank long before the era of ATMs. But I found my way, and that year in France was one of the most memorable of my life. Being there for the entire year is what made the difference, because I had enough time to really immerse myself in the experience. This couldn't have happened in a few weeks or even a few months. I went on to graduate school in international management, got married to a fellow student from that school who founded a successful international business, and I launched my career in public relations. In 2004, I joined our family's real estate business and am now managing a portfolio of industrial and commercial properties. I'm also working on some development projects. Thanks to the success of that business, I was able to create a charitable fund with the purpose of making a difference in the world. Okay, so now I have money to give away, but to whom? For what? I believe strongly that you need to donate money responsibly in ways that are productive and cost-effective. That's when I look back at my EAP experience, which changed my life. I left for France a timid girl, afraid to step out of her comfort zone. I returned as a mature, confident woman with professional and personal skills that have served me well ever since. Self-reliance, resilience in the face of adversity, and a global view of the world, not to mention fluency in the French language. Without that experience, I'm not sure that I would have been as successful in my life, my career, and my marriage. I wanted to give that same life-changing opportunity to those who might not be as fortunate as I was, and thus the Dettenhaver Scholarships were born. The Paul Dettenhaver Extension Scholarship Fund was established in 2014 in memory of my husband, who passed away in 2011. Paul believed that international experiences lead to a richer, more interesting life and are vital to building a better understanding of our other cultures and people. Since the first scholarships were awarded in 2004, over 750 students have been given the opportunity to fulfill their dreams of studying abroad, and that gives me more joy than anything money can buy.
So that was Linda's quick thank you and a description about her award program. But now of those 750 students who have received a scholarship from Linda, her fund, she keeps the thank you notes from them all, and she's sent a few words about what's meaningful for her in those when she hears directly from students. So just another quick little video.
I'd like to leave you with a few quotes from the report students provide to me upon their return from their year abroad. These students say it more beautifully than I ever could. EAP is more than a program, more than a year in a student's life. It is a life changer, an experience that provides a lifelong foundation of confidence, self-reliance, and personal strength. I am so proud and happy to be part of it. Thank you.
So we see this first one. I am learning so much about this country, about its people, and about myself. I came with expectations to grow and learn, and I am being blown away and inspired daily. Here's another. I am not the same person I was 10 months ago. The knowledge that I have gained of the world and other cultures has changed my perspective and will forever color my thoughts, decisions, and my path in life. And finally, studying abroad has completely changed my life. I am much more confident, independent, strong-willed, and adventurous. And I think that one reminds me of Linda. So with that, I will turn it over to Vivian, who will introduce our speaker today.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and my apologies to everyone if you hear barking behind me. We are babysitting for my daughter's several large, loud animals. They're wonderful, but they choose the wrong time to bark. So good day, everybody, and happy Friday. I'm delighted to welcome you all to a special UCEAP Presents honoring John C. Williams, the 11th President and CEO of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. During John's undergrad career at Berkeley, he spent a year abroad in Göttingen in 1982-83. After graduating, he went on to earn a master's degree from LSE, the London School of Economics, and a PhD in economics from Stanford University. And actually, we may have been there at partly the same time. So I'm sorry I didn't get to know you then. I did not meet John until several years ago when we had a delightful dinner in Oakland. By that time, he had moved past his master's degree from LSE, earned a PhD in economics from Stanford, and at that time was already the president and CEO of the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco. In June 2018, John became president and CEO of the Fed in New York, in which capacity he also serves as the vice chairman and a permanent member of the Federal Open Market Committee. Along the way in his distinguished career, he's been a senior economist in the White House Council of Economic Advisors, a lecturer at Stanford's Graduate School of Business. John is also a sort of keeper of the keys to the New York Fed's Gold Vault, which is on my bucket list of places to visit. And so perhaps if there's time, John can tell us something about the 6,000 tons of gold bars that his office sits upon. But for now, let me say that we are so proud to honor John with the Linda Dettenhaver Distinguished Alumni Award. And I'm so pleased that John will be able to speak with us now about his year abroad, share what he learned from that experience, how being in Göttingen informed and shaped his career as an economist, central banker, and a leader in national and global policy institutions. So thank you and welcome, John.
Well, thank you, Vivian and Elizabeth. It's great to be here today. Yes, you have an open invitation when you're in New York. We'll get you a Gold Vault tour. the one thing about the tour is we do check to make sure at the end that all the gold is still there and you don't have any of it with you. But definitely you should do that when you hear it. It's very cool. And I'm honored, and obviously thank you so much for this award. And I was listening to Linda's comments in the letters that were sent in, and I realized that everything I had planned to say was said in terms of the life-changing aspect of the experience of studying abroad, that how it opens your mind to things. I'll still talk a little bit about that experience from 1982 and 83, which seems like a long time ago, but those memories are very much with me all the time. Now, again, I will start with a reference to Tolkien, who's one of my favorite authors, huge fan of the Lord of the Rings, but another one of my favorite books by Tolkien is The Hobbit, which is a subtitle, There and Back Again. And I think when I think about my time in Europe, because of course when you study abroad, you don't just study. I hope you actually travel all over the region, and like all of my classmates in Germany and everybody else, we traveled all over Europe. There is very much an aspect of being there and back again. And every day I find that I'm brought back to those experiences, things I learned while studying abroad, and things that have defined my life. And in fact, in important ways have shaped my career today. So let me talk briefly about some of those. So I did go to Berkeley. So as an undergraduate at UC Berkeley. Now we get, for those of us or those in the audience who are a little younger, I think you got to remember what things were like in the early 80s. So remote learning meant running down and getting photocopies of transcripts of lectures that were sold on campus. That was our version of remote learning, which I think is still available. When you wanted to take pictures or selfies with your roommates, of course, you had to wait several days before they got developed. And as we were talking before this, a phone call, especially one from Europe, was something you actually had to go someplace, sign up for it, and end up paying quite a bit of money to do, especially a long distance call. Now, when I was starting out at Berkeley, one of the things that I got introduced somehow early on was the education abroad program, the junior year abroad. And for some reason, me and a number of my classmates, we just locked onto this. Is this something that would be really exciting to do? And it's like we heard before, there are some requirements. It is a little nerve-wracking. You have to apply. You have to meet the various requirements in terms of your major, studying the language, all that. But it was something that from early on in my freshman year, it seemed like this is something to aim for. This is something that would be really exciting and challenging and hard. And I have to admit, it's going to be really hard for me because I am just not a natural at learning foreign languages. I find it just something that you have to work really hard at. So doing this required a lot of study, and I took German 1 through 5, in the quarter system back then. Just from the beginning, learning the language and preparing for this. Now, the thing that I think got me through it, and I hope some of my friends, is that a number of us, about a handful of us, got together who were taking German at the same time and had gotten to the same thing. Let's help each other, study abroad in Germany in our third year. So we kind of formed a team of people who were all committed to doing this, not quite 100% sure why this was so important, but we're going to do it and help really kind of make sure that we get there together. Now, it did involve a lot of work. And one part of it was the language I mentioned, but the other was, really getting ready for this preparation for the German culture. So one of the things we had in Berkeley back then, which was totally cool, very strong memory of mine, is we had a German club once a week. And so we headed down to our Stammtisch, which is German for your table you go to every single time you go to the pub, at a local Berkeley restaurant. We go there together after class. This group of students I mentioned, the 5 of us plus other students and faculty, we would practice our German. It was German, intensive German language. We'd also learn these German card games, which were very popular to play, Doppelkopf and Scott. and there's very long wood tables. Of course, the most important thing that we did together, besides speak German, play German card games, is drink beer. Because if you're going to immerse yourself in German culture, you're going to want to be able to do all three of those things at the same time. So we took it very seriously. We did this every week for 2 years and became very practiced at it. Now, at the time we were getting ready to go, the Clash had their song, Should I Stay or Should I Go? So that was the theme song in 1982 for us as we're getting ready. But there was just no question what we were going to do. We were going, we're on our way. So, fall of '82, we're suddenly, coming from Berkeley, now in streets of Göttingen, which is for those who don't know it, it's basically a small university town, really nice place to visit, live. The university is pretty much the center of the community, and a relatively short distance from the border of what was then East Germany. Now, this was the early 1980s. For those of you who remember that, it was a fascinating time politically, internationally, in terms of the Cold War, in terms of Europe being divided, and a time when German politics, in fact, were very active with a major change of government happening at the time. So it was a fascinating time to be in another country. And it was a time that, when you're an American kid growing up in California, that, you learned really about how other people see the world, how they see the United States, how they see, other countries, how Europeans and people from around the world have different perspectives, different viewpoints. And that was, of course, why you study abroad, right? I mean, it's really about getting that broadening of experience. I'm sure I wrote in my essay for the AP program, maybe Elizabeth will dig this up, but that was the goal, was to broaden your perspectives. And I felt that from the very beginning, that's exactly what happened. It was eye-opening. You're immersed in a country, speaking the language all the time, talking to people from the host country, but from actually around the world. We had students in our dorm from countries, various countries, and we did exactly what I had prepared for. We ate together, we drank beer together, we played card games, and we talked about all the things that people who are 20 talk about. Again, whether you're meeting people on campus in the classes, it was really about understanding different people's perspectives and views, and opening your mind to different experiences. The language, I told you that was really hard for me, but that was the thing that actually I think was the key to being successful. I'm going to go back to the comment about being there for a whole year, that having developed the language and ability to do that, it really did open the doors to really, listen and hear and understand, with others and other perspectives. Now, let's go back to that was back then, and today, what do I do? What's my job? Well, a big part of my job is involved in international economics, international central banking. So I do go, well, not right now because none of us are doing anything like this, but part of my job is to go to Europe every 2 months, travel around the world and work together with my peers at central banks around the world. One is in the Bank for International Settlements in Basel. So I don't get back to Germany as much as I do, but I definitely get to Switzerland a lot. And that experience as a 20-year-old kid of kind of seeing the world with maybe different eyes and different perspectives, I think has paid off to me today. Understanding how people from different cultures, different countries, different viewpoints, how we work together, take those various experiences and perspectives and find a way to work together to achieve a common goal. Working with my peers during the past year and a half has been an incredibly valuable experience in terms of the importance of with us at the Federal Reserve, working together with our colleagues at European Central Bank, with around other parts of Europe, around the rest of the world, and really the importance of working together, and especially in a time of crisis. So to me, when I have been sitting in the meetings with my colleagues in Basel, it does remind me of my roots back in my days in Göttingen, when I first started this journey of really, being a citizen of the world in a way. Now, so that was to me, my first lesson that I've taken with me throughout my career. And in terms of opening your mind, understanding different perspectives, working together with people. Now, the second, if you can believe it, was something I learned in an economics course that year. So I should tell you this, I wasn't an econ major before education abroad. I was for those Berkeley people that heard of this, there was a political economies and industrial societies major that was existing, and I was thinking I wanted to go into international politics and policy. But the EAP program is really demanding, and it required you to, back then at least, to have your major declared before you left, and to have it approved in my study plan approved. And the economics department was much more, shall we say, generous and forgiving about how to get all that done and fit in a year abroad. And I was able to do that. So I actually declared an economics major. I'm an economist because of EAP, put it that way. So there was actually, when I got there, one of the pieces of advice that wasn't so good that I got about studying in Germany was stay away from the econ courses, the economics courses. They're too hard. American students, as back then, American students really struggle. They get bad grades. And for anyone who's been involved in the AP, I'm sure you all remember the grade issue that we had. But so it's kind of advice, stay away from economics courses. But that was okay, because there was these amazing history classes, poli-sci classes, other classes I took this course on the history of European post-war European integration, which has, again, helped me a lot to understand how we've gotten to where we are today. So I did learn a lot. But then I decided, I'm going to take these German economic courses. I bet you they're not so bad. And I did, and that was a good decision. I took a class in something called supply side economics. It was really the university professor teaching about what was happening in the US back in the 70s and 80s. And because I was from the US, because I actually knew what Prop 13 was and could talk to them about that, it ended up being a really interactive, interesting class. And I got to interact a lot with the professor. And one of the issues at the time, which became an issue later, was shortening the work week from 40 hours to 35 hours to reduce structural unemployment. So that was a very big topic in Germany in the early 80s. Later on, it was a big topic in Germany and France and other countries. But it ended up, it was the first time I worked on a research paper. The two of us talked about, well, there's an economic theory about like how does a change in the work week would affect the economy. We worked through a simple, theoretical model, wrote up some results and talked about lots. So like, again, from EAP getting me to become an econ major, EAP also got me to start thinking about doing economic research, which was never really my idea at the time. I was still kind of thinking more of a practical kind of perhaps a career. So anyway, it was a great experience that I had just because I took the econ class. It happened to be there was a topic that we got into thinking about policy issues. And so it was my first introduction to taking economic theory and applying it to like, well, how does that work in the real world? And of course, in fact, that's what I've been doing the rest of my career. Now, I had a great moment several years ago. I'll admit this, I was at home playing video games. That is one of my pastimes. And my son, who's now older, but he was in college in Oakland. And at the time, and he was probably the same age as I was when I went to Germany. And he came up to me and said, "Dad, can I talk to you for a minute and about something?" And I said, "Sure, what is it?" He said, "Well, there's a program to study abroad for the summer for the art school. And it would be in Paris and London. I'd be able to meet artists and really learn about the experience of artists in other countries." And I said, "Well, that sounds like a great opportunity." And I said, "Did you ask Mom?" Because that's how all of our conversations work. And she said, "No." She said, "You should ask Dad." And I asked him, I said, I traveled abroad and studied in Germany. I later on traveled abroad and studied in the UK for a bit, London School of Economics. You know what my answer is going to be? And so, of course, he said yes. And he just had a terrific experience, which was a wonderful opportunity for him to again, kind of get that same experience of, at the same point in life that I think has affected him just as much as it affected me. Now, I think an important point on that story and my story is that, you know, study abroad is expensive, it costs more, it takes time. For a lot of students, it's not, you know, something that's easy to do on its own. And I've been very fortunate. I had the support from my parents to be able to do that. I also had the benefit of a scholarship from the program too at the time. So that was a really nice help to get me over that. And, you know, I'm a huge proponent for students to find ways to be able to do this. I think that studying abroad is about the best liberal arts kind of education you can get in your life. But I also think it's on all of us as alums and others and you know, to try to help make that happen. And that's why it was wonderful to hear about the scholarships. I think I heard 750 students benefiting from that. But I think it really is a case where we can help give people opportunities to have the same experiences, the same life-changing experiences that we benefited from so much. And I strongly support that. So with that, I think I'm going to end with just saying I think the students said it better than I did. This was a life-changing experience. It's with me every day. I do get to live, unfortunately, get to live the life of being able to continue that engagement around the world and kind of do exactly what I think I wrote in my essay of when I applied for the program, which is really have a life experience of you know, that involves the rest of the world understanding different perspectives and becoming a better person because of that. So again, thank you for this honor. I'm looking forward to watching all the students. I do go to the website you know, every once in a while to see what the students are doing, where they're going and telling their stories. And I'm looking forward to seeing that also in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, John. That was wonderful. Vivian, do you want to?
Well, at this point, yeah, that was lovely, and Linda Duttenhaver, you know, her scholarships are for a year long, and one of the things that we're really proud of at UCEAP is that even though nationally students are consistently opting for shorter duration programs, but UCEAP still is at twice the national percentage. So that we have about 5 to 6% of our students study abroad for the year in an immersion setting. And nationally, that's dropped to about 2.5% or so. You know, we still feel that we are really happy that our students are able to work that in to go for a year. At this point, we'd like to open it up for questions. If you have a question, then please put it into the chat. Here we have, would you ever be a chaperone for a UCEAP program once you retire?
That would be a totally cool thing to do. That would be like not failing at retirement. Most of my colleagues who retired that I know have gone on to continue to work. So that would be like a fun thing to do. Hey, on your grade, I think that's exactly why I got the advice I got. I didn't want to bring up the negative thing about all the debates we had about grading, of converting grades to UC grades. I still remember that too.
It really was. I took 2 courses in fields that were completely, you know, alien to me. Art history, which everyone said was phenomenally hard. So I took that one, pass, no pass. And then economics, which, because I'd always done well in math, I thought this will be a piece of cake. But the instructor, the Dutch instructor, literally talked about guns and butter. And I think I snoozed out for much of the course, and so I got a C. But in any event, I do think that one of the things that you do learn is that that global perspective, right? Do you feel that there's a different way of teaching economics, you know, on the continent or in the UK from the way it may be taught here?
Okay, so that's a really interesting question. So I've got a number of friends, you know, who teach in Germany, and obviously in other countries. But I'll talk about Germany because that's the one I know the best. So when I was in Göttingen, so now again, like back when I was young, we had to walk 10 miles over the ice, but everything was in German. All the courses were in German, all the conversations we had in German. That was one of the reasons I like Göttingen, as opposed to some of these programs where there's a lot of American students. And we had 52 students, I believe, at the time, if I recall right, from all of UC at Göttingen. And so we're spread out all over. So nowadays, German universities have totally Americanized turned into English teaching of economics courses. And the reason they're doing that and the reason they've done that in the last decade or so is because they're prepared. Economics, academic economics is primarily now American, British, more English speaking field, and to be prepared for graduate study, whether a master's degree or a PhD program, they're going to do those in English. And so you've seen the PhD programs go to mostly English. The master's programs have now moved that, and undergraduates, I'm sure are still taught in German and stuff. But the economics has become truly an English-speaking thing. It does prepare the students. I mean, a few of my co-authors through my research career originally from Germany, and they are prepared in terms of English and everything. But it is a change. The UK, LSE is very much like a US university in how it teaches economics. The US is really kind of dominates in that. So it's a huge change from when I was a student then.
Thank you. There are a couple of questions in here. One is a quick answer. When you're in Basel, what language do you speak? Do you work in English because of the universal English, or do you still use your German?
So that's a great question. So first of all, it is Switzerland, so I wouldn't be speaking the High German of Göttingen. They have their own version of German there. So a couple things on that. First of all, I always thought the bravest student of a friend of mine was my friend Graham Jackson, who before Göttingen, he did a summer in Switzerland as a summer course. And staying with a family, selling, I think he sold fruit and vegetables at a stand, and he learned his original German outside the classroom on the Swiss German, which is something I've still not mastered. So what do we speak in Basel? English is the language of the BIS, the IMF and things. So we speak English in the meetings. That's kind of everyone speaks English today. A lot of central bank governors have PhDs in economics or other kind of advanced degrees. So the English is quite, people are amazingly good at English today. When in a small town, like if I'm in, especially if you're going out to go to a restaurant and things, you can speak. I can speak some German. It's mostly about pronouncing things, and there's such a difference, and this is kind of sad, but at least for me, there's such a difference between being 19 and being 59 in terms of your willingness to just go and start speaking a language you haven't spoken in a long time. So I find that the way the world's changed since 1982 is a high percentage of people just naturally have really good English skills. So it's really when you go to the small business or maybe the restaurant where you actually get to speak some German.
And then we have a question asking if you might share your thoughts on modern monetary theory. This is from Michael, who went to Bordeaux in 1968-69.
Yeah, so I know that we got some reporters on the line, which is fine. So, so I will talk economics a little bit. I'll talk shop a little bit. So modern monetary theory is basically a view that's out there that says that primarily the fiscal policy, meaning like tax cuts or increases in government spending, if it's accompanied by a very accommodative monetary policy, like very low interest rates for a long time, will be a very powerful way to bring an economy back from a recession. So, for example, they came out of a global financial crisis in the past decade. So to me, it's really about how fiscal policy, again, taxes and spending, and monetary policy working together can help support an economic recovery. In my own view, it's neither modern or monetary really, because modern, it's a combination of old ideas, Keynesian ideas, which I think are very mainstream in terms of how fiscal policy works. it's not that kind of different in terms of, monetary policy obviously can help the economy, and monetary and fiscal policy interact in ways that can help the economy recover. I think it's got a lot of publicity because it was been advertised as, maybe a completely new theory, when I think it's just taking some old ideas and combining them in a way that was particularly, kind of relevant maybe in the recovery from the financial crisis, and I think relevant in other periods where the economy's struggling. The thing that I don't agree with modern MMT, as it's called, that I think sometimes it's misrepresented, and not by the people who have written about it, but maybe in the more some of the commentary, that somehow there's a kind of magical power or some kind of like idea that, monetary, the kind of the regular rules or understanding of the economy doesn't apply. I think it's generally more of a view that, monetary and fiscal policy working together can be very powerful, which I don't think is actually that controversial on its own. It's just sometimes it's sold in a way that maybe suggests that there's, free lunch or something, which I don't. As you all know, if you study economics, there isn't a free lunch.
Thank you. A more recent alum, Kevin Peng from the UK in 2015 asks, how does your study abroad experience help your working relationship with central bank colleagues across the world?
Well, I think the first thing is history matters. If you're in, I don't know if everyone knows the history of the BIS, the Bank for International Settlements, but that was created after World War I as basically a way for central bankers to work together, and then it ended up having a role, with all the payments, after World War I and working all that out, and so it has this kind of very strong historical basis coming out of the interwar years, and then continuing after World War II, of a period obviously of horrible conflict and war in the region, and it's so there's a history there of let's work together, just as there was with the the EEC and the EC and the EU and all that and everything that's come out of that. So it's one of the things you recognize is this is part of a historical construct. This is a part of Europe finding ways to peacefully coexist, and not only politically, but also economically and financially, and in the central bank world. Of course, the BIS now includes central banks from all over the world, from the Americas, from Asia, and Africa, and elsewhere, and carries that same, kind of approach. Like, how do we work together in a world, global economy, global financial system? I think the second thing that comes out of, and that's again tied to my experience of living in Germany, in the middle of the Cold War, in the middle of a time of a lot of political, debate and things around that. I think the other thing that really comes out of this is just understanding that what you're watching in your own media is going to be completely different than whether other people are watching and thinking about and how they think about things, and listening is really important. Just listening and hearing. It doesn't mean you have to agree on everything, but just actually having that skill to say, yeah, okay, I see. I now understand where you're coming from and why. Again, in the world of central banking, it's a world where we actually cooperate a lot and work together. We have similar missions of keeping inflation low, keeping our economy strong, keeping the financial system strong. So we have common kind of goals in all of our countries and common language that we talk about. So there's a lot of commonalities that we can build on. But again, understanding kind of where people are coming from and what issues, political or other, that they're dealing with as you work together.
Actually, one common theme I think that's emerged across these alumni presentations, which have just been so fabulous, is the fact that when students are abroad, they do see things from a different perspective because the media presents things, from that perspective, but they also gain a very different understanding of history. In that they're able to look from the outside, in, and to also see how a common event was experienced differently. So I think that's absolutely the case. And we have two other questions. One is, how has your experience learning economics in Germany, studying in Germany, Has it shaped your view on monetary policy or the field of economics? And the other is the global economy a good thing to have?
Okay, so that's the philosophical one. So, I think that how, again, I think a little example of starting to think about questions like, how does economic policy affect the economy? Does it achieve the goals that people are hoping for, or why it might not? Was something I really started thinking about seriously when I was a student in Germany. And at the time, I was planning to work on fiscal policy, public finance. And that's why I studied at Berkeley as my field as an undergraduate, public finance and macroeconomics. And that's where I thought I was going to go in working on trying to combine these ideas that I always had growing up in Sacramento, at college in Germany. Everything was somehow combine the idea of somehow get to a place where I was working on public policy set of issues. I grew up in I grew up in Sacramento. My dad worked in state government his whole career, worked in the governor's office. We lived in a family. We talked policy and politics every day at the dinner table. So that was kind of where I saw myself wanting to be in that world. It wasn't until, so that's, continued to develop when I was taking classes in Germany. It was only later that I turned to monetary policy, which was, I think, a very fortunate shift, because the huge difference between monetary policy and public finance or fiscal policy is monetary policy. We are able to take these ideas and all the research and work we do, debate that, discuss that, and then bring it into the application to actually decision making. The time distance between like really careful, hard thought and then actually turning that into action in monetary policy is remarkably short compared to fiscal policy, where some of my friends have spent 30 years studying issues, coming to conclusions, and never seeing them actually happen. But when I think about my experience really in Germany, I guess to the question, maybe it's tied to the other one, is that realizing the international aspects. This is an open economy, a global economy. In the U.S., even today, American students tend to start from this point that the U.S. is the economy. You study it in kind of isolation from the rest. And if you're an international economist, you start thinking about the rest. But of course, if you're in Germany, that's you couldn't do that, right? I mean, such a high percentage of trade is with other countries on the continent, and then the rest of the world. So that was, I think, one of the eye-opening things. So is a global economy a good thing to have? I think there are huge advantages to having openness across countries, in terms of trade. Obviously, there are issues around climate, around worker conditions, and other things that have to be considered in terms of policies. But overall, I think that, when I think about going back to the history of Western Europe, let me stay there. When I took the class at Göttingen back in '82, it was about the first measure around European integration was around coal and steel, if I'm getting this right. If I'm trying to remember things I took in a class not long ago, but it was the first thing is how to get Germany and France, the Low Countries, let's work together on economic issues of common interest, and then that became the EEC, if I get my sequence right, and continue to build on that. And I think that one of the things about the trade and the openness of the countries in Europe has brought them together. Doesn't mean solves everything or is perfect for all things, but I do think it's a way that has helped bring the people of Europe together in a healthy way, which is again, I think one of the goals. It was the economics, the politics, the culture, the society, kind of all moving into a more positive, much more positive direction than they had been, obviously, before.
Thank you. We have another question, which is just, have you stayed in contact with any of the students or with other people that you met while you were studying in Göttingen?
Over the decades now, I hate to bring the decades up, I think I've been in touch with some of the students who I've crossed paths with through work or through other things, but we're kind of all over the map now. But it is definitely something I thought about, because when I was thinking about this event, that when I thought about this little band of students that got together, that we should get them back together again. Now I noticed the note that I do know that the place we met is no longer there. So we're going to have to find a new place and I'll have to go and next time I'm in Germany, pick up a couple decks of cards because I don't have those either, but reconnect on that.
That's lovely. I noticed that there are a number of people on the call who all studied in Göttingen at various times before you, after you, and I don't know if any of them would like to share anything or ask John anything.
Yeah, Vivian, while people are thinking about that and jumping in, which I'd love to have, I would like to share the story that I mentioned before we started, because I think for those who were there before or right after, this will definitely bring back memories. So talking about a completely different world than we live in today, I'm a huge sports fan. I'm a big fan of the Giants, the 49ers, and everybody, being a Northern California kid. And to get the sports scores for me, I was up in the dorm building up the hill, and I'd walk down the hill at some point or from classes, whatever, go over to the study center in the middle of town, go over to, they had the rack of the newspapers on the big wooden dowels, get there and look at the International Herald Tribune so that I could read the sports scores from 2 days ago. And then, and as usual, as a Californian, complain that the New York, Washington newspapers almost always forget to put in the 49ers and Giants reporting because they're focused on their own teams. But that is a strong memory of the pre-internet, pre-cell phone, pre-everything world of walking usually a mile or so just to see yesterday's sports scores, just to have that little bit of connection.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me of those racks with the wooden dowels and the newspapers hanging over them.
Yeah, and by the way, it was a horrible year for the 49ers and the Giants. So it was probably okay that so every time I walked there was a groan when I looked at the scoreboard.
Right.
I'm from Göttingen, or I got to study in Göttingen and now live in San Francisco. And David Voltering and I both organized a Göttingen alumni group in San Francisco several years ago. And I think we're being encouraged to organize another one. It might just have to be at Suppenküche followed by a game at the Giants. So next time you're out here, maybe drop us an email and we can gladly coordinate something.
Terrific. And I'm in for the game, the Giants game.
I'd like to say something. I'm looking at when you were in Göttingen versus the time I was there, which was with the very first group, which was probably about the time you were born. And I'm also thinking of my time in Berkeley, both prior to going and after returning. And in terms of the history of the time, everything was so very different. And also, this is just a totally curious question. When we went there, the Goethe Institute came to us for 6 weeks, and we were divided into 5 groups with instructions prior to the beginning of the school year in November. I'm just curious, did you experience anything like that when you went there, or was it set up totally differently?
Well, my recollection was we had was it a 6-week like intensive language program at the beginning? Am I remembering?
Yeah, that's what we did.
So I'm remembering that, which was which was an opportunity to get to know the other students quite a bit, and obviously I think level set people to make sure that everybody was up on the language. We actually had a lot of fun activities we did in that as well. It was actually interesting, now that you bring that memory back, that and the Thanksgiving dinner were the 2 things that we did as a group, and we did a trip. I guess we did a trip early in that fall too. So I thought that I'm full of praise for how the program was run, and I thought that one of the things they did really well when I was there is they helped get us there. They helped set us up, and they held our hands a little bit, especially on Thanksgiving, which was a little sad. You're far away from home, and then let us go off, and it's kind of like let the bird fly from the nest a bit and really immerse yourself. So I thought that was just like exactly what I felt I needed. Some support, but okay, let's do our own. Let's go out and get into this.
Did you also have, it was called an,
ILP. That's a memory. Sorry.
we had what was called an Informationsreise to Berlin during the time we were there. That was paid for, I guess, by the German government, where we went to Berlin for about 4 or 5 days, and also a number of German students came along with us. And we were introduced to the city of West Berlin, which was kind of a nice little perk. Also, just again, out of curiosity, because the German system doesn't assign grades or things like that, did you end up also having tutoring sessions for the courses you were taking? Well, for one thing, they were to make sure that we understood what had gone on in the lectures, but also somehow they must have been related to how marks were assigned at the end of the semester or year. It's been kind of a few years ago, so I'm not clear on everything there.
Well, I'll answer first of all, the intensive language. that does bring back very strong memories. So we didn't do anything to Berlin as a group. Best of my recollection, I don't think we did that. I did go to Berlin, and for all of the people who are much younger, that was West Berlin, and then that was my trip into East Berlin, where you had to convert. You remember this? You had to convert a Deutschmark to Ostmark, the German mark, which was valuable, to the Eastern mark, which was not. And I still have my copy of Das Kapital by Marx in German, published in East Germany, because you have to spend those Ostmarks on something. They don't worth anything outside of Berlin or East Germany. And so I bought a blue covered copy of Das Kapital, which I still have. It's one of my mementos of my time. But we didn't. That was a trip I did on my own.
I thought was
about the tutor. Can I answer? Yeah. So my system, we individually negotiated. I want other people to share what they did. We individually negotiated with the professors what we would do, and it was terrifying. It's still terrifying not to remember it. In the seminars I had to write an essay and do a presentation in front of the class in one of the seminars. In the macroeconomics class, I had to do basically it was it wasn't a written exam. It was just the professor asking me questions and me writing on the chalkboard in front of him. I mean, sorry, in Berkeley that doesn't happen, right? You're meeting individually with the professor and doing live your math on the chalkboard, it was all individually negotiated, and I would say still problematically converted to the UC grades.
Well, that's totally different from my experience. It was a year-long course in history, very large lecture, and we had some kind of section. It was called Die moderne Weltlage, where the professor jumped around from topic to topic of his choice. I remember the Crimean War was one of the topics that he covered during the time. But also, I wanted to say, because there was a question about whether you'd kept in touch with any of your friends, classmates, and I just wanted to comment that 2 of my very dearest friends to this day, one lives in El Cerrito. She attended Davis, and another one, a friend of mine who's in Colorado, she was with me in Berkeley, so I knew her before I went there, and we somehow ended up in the same very odd dormitory. It was called Franz Stockhaus, where there were about 7 or 8 females on the main floor, and then the upper 2 floors were male, and the house was sort of divided between maybe half German and half other, which included a lot of people. But Susie and Judy are still among my very dearest friends. And also I have a friend, Hildrun, who lived in that dormitory, and she's from Paderborn. I saw her 2006, 2008. I hadn't been back to Germany for nearly 40 years at that point. Somehow life happens. But I got to spend a couple days with her. And she's terrific. So that's my personal experience with being able to keep in touch with at least a couple people from my year abroad.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lois. Oh, go ahead, Elizabeth, please.
I was just going to say, John, how did you select Germany? Were you already taking German, or because we had programs obviously in France and Italy and Japan and Spain at the time? What made you drawn towards Germany?
I was a failed student of German language in high school.
Okay.
That was the language that I tried to take and was horrible at. And so that was kind of just restarting that. But I didn't really learn much in junior high or high school. So that was it. But again, I always go back to this, like, it doesn't really make sense. You know, it was something that we kind of decided this is what we're going to do and talked each other into it. And I have to admit, I mean, you know, there's at Berkeley, there's the international studies, or I can't remember whether there was an office there in one of the, back then in one of the wooden buildings off campus. And I remember just going there and thinking that would be so cool. I would love to do that. And I would love to, I've always had this idea when I was young of having a job that brought me travel and going to other places around the world. And it's like, wow, you could do this, and you would get credit for it, which, you know, like my son, I was preparing the pitch, probably like all of us, going to mom and dad and saying, well, it's really important. First of all, it doesn't cost more. It only costs this, and you get full UC credit for it. So I still remember that conversation of making the pitch around that. But it was really just kind of things coming together that way.
Who is Farrell Parker with?
Hi, John. This is Matt Ogburn.
Hey,
How are you?
I'm good.
I kind of scrolled through to see if there were any other familiar faces from 82, 83. I think I'm the only one, but we exchanged emails last night when we found out that you were doing this. And we made a series of bets as to what you might mention during the call. And Graham Jackson is the name that you brought up. And the Heidelberg Inn is the place that you referenced that we used to go in the German club.
Yeah.
Great to bring back those memories. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and the Heidelberg was definitely it was an investment in our future.
Well, I mean, what a great way to have a German club. If you show up Friday at 3, beer's free, and they don't card you.
I wasn't going to mention that.
Well, great to see you. Thank you.
Great to see you.
The other memory I have from our dinner together, and I was wondering if all economists have this, but do you remember you had Vivian and I pull out, was it a $10 bill or a $5 bill? And you then proceeded to tell us all about the symbolism and it was just fascinating how much you knew about what was going on in our actual currency, the pictures.
Well, you know, in San Francisco, we were responsible for kind of the distribution of currency around the country. And but as Vivian pointed out, I now have the gold that we are responsible for. So that's another part of the job. The thing on the bills, just so everyone understands, if you look at your $1 bills or any bills, you'll see that the $1 bills actually indicate which Federal Reserve Bank issued the bill, but they're good everywhere.
Well, I think we are just about at our time here. Elizabeth and Bryn, I want to thank you for managing this. John, this has just been so delightful, and thank you to those who participated and asked questions. I hope we got to most of them. And we are so pleased, and we're so glad that you accepted the Linda Duttenhaver Alumni Award, which is meaningful for us, and we hope it will be meaningful for you as well. So any last words, Elizabeth?
Just, I'm sorry we couldn't do this in person. We had plans for you to come out, I think, last year, and that was canceled, unfortunately. But what's nice about doing it online is we do more people get to join the conversation and hear and congratulate you. So thanks again, John. We really enjoyed having you.
it's wonderful to hear people's stories and again, hearing those messages from the students about the scholarships. I mean, that is one thing that when I was at the in-person event in San Francisco several years ago, that, you know, seeing people who are benefiting from that today and what they're able to do it in countries all around the world, obviously in different ways, is exciting. And it just shows that whether you were there in 1963 or whether you're there in 1983 or whether you're there in 2013, the value and experience and life-changing aspects of this are still there, and you know, and more power to keeping the program strong and obviously strongly supported by the alums.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And have a great
Okay.
weekend.
Thanks. You
Bye,
too.
everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks everyone for attending.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.